Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ma'am.
Take a break.
Good evening, ma'am.
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 Take a break for 2 minutes, then I'll start
Good
my
evening, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
relax, drink some water. Right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, am I
Yes, ma'am.
audible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Actually, in the previous class, I discussed about the types of syllabi, the major types of syllabi, process-based and the product-based syllabi, right? Okay, and today I'll be continuing the same topic because we have defined what are product-based syllabi and what are the process-based syllabi, right? And so what is a process-based syllabus and what is a product-based syllabus? Anybody, if you remember? Yes? Lingaya, can you answer this question? What is a process-based syllabus?
Good afternoon, madam. Sorry, ma'am, I was not there in the class.
See, that is not an excuse to be excused, no? If you are not there in the class, I want everyone to, ask your friends like what has been discussed on that day's class. And then you should read and prepare and come. If you have any doubts, you can clarify them with the teacher. So that is what you are supposed to do. Anyways, anybody else? Tejasri, what do you mean by a process-based syllabus?
A process-based syllabus which focuses on how things is going on in learning.
Okay. How things are going on in a learning, and you'll be assessing them every now and then, and you'll be analyzing the performance of the learners, right? And what is a product-based syllabus?
It is the result, whatever students are.
Yeah. End of the course, right? Like assessment in the end of the course, we talk about that, and it focuses mostly on result or the outcome of the learning. Okay, and so we had been discussing other types also, like the structural syllabus, notional functional syllabus and all. And now we'll discuss the other two types of syllabi, the communicative syllabus and the task-based syllabus. All right. See, from the net, I had one PPT. Let me share that with you. So I should click on share screen, right? Yes. Are you all able to see this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Right? I'm just, this is from SlideShare from the internet.
Okay.
So the outline, what is communicative syllabus? Actually, what do you mean by communicative syllabus? This communicative syllabus and the task-based syllabus, they both fall under process-based syllabi. Okay, they come under this category, right? And what exactly you understand by saying communicative syllabus?
Communication.
See, in the beginning, most of the linguists, material developers, they were focusing much on the content or the structure of the language, the forms, the rules, the norms and all. So they try to focus only on these things while developing the syllabus, right? But what happened eventually, these product-based syllabi got shifted to process-based syllabi. And they are nothing but the communicative syllabus and the task-based syllabus. So now you tell me what is the difference between the product-based one and the process-based one? Why there is a shift? Minimum logic you can use. I had been explaining by giving so many examples and all in the previous classes. They were focusing on the structure, right? Norms and rules of the language. And the students at the end, when they tried to assess them, they could do well in the exam, which constituted of only testing grammatical elements of the language, right? They were learning that. But when it comes to the application of the language, they failed. So that's the main reason why these people came up with some other new syllabuses, right? And among those new syllabi, these are the most advanced one, like communicative syllabus. What do you mean by communicative? What do you understand by that, communicative? Come on, speaker. Are you bored or are you, tired?
Talking with each other.
Communicating with the students each other.
Communicating.
Exchanging of or sharing the opinion.
Yes.
Sharing the opinion and interacting with each other.
Interactive.
How well you interact, how well you use the learned language in the real life situations. When you encounter whatever you have learned in the classroom, you should be able to use that beyond the classroom, outside the classroom too, right? How well you can apply the learned language. Apply the usage, the learned language or whatever you have learned in the class in the authentic situations. That is what, led to the development of this communicative process. Communication, to improve your communication. To improve your communication means what? What you are doing there. You have to listen carefully. You should read carefully. You should speak carefully. You should also read carefully, right? And you should understand what you are doing. And communication in the sense, the fluency levels, language accuracy and language competency. Language accuracy in the sense, you should be aware of all the grammar terms. I don't say must be aware of that. Sometimes, you might not follow the right grammatical rules in writing, but you might, follow that while speaking. So it happens. There are exceptions as such, right? So how do you improve your communication? That means first thing, yes, you should know the norms and forms of the language that is being taught to you. Second point, you should be aware or you should be able to use that correctly in your conversations or in your interaction with the others, all right? You should use this language fluently. You should, it depends on the appropriacy also. Appropriacy in the sense using right word for the right context. Okay, when you miss that, then you're not a fluent speaker. So all these factors, they might have seen after the end result, the results of the product-based syllabus might have motivated them to come up with new syllabi, which could give scope for the students to become more communicative or to improve their language usage, right? Or to increase the usage of the language to the utmost. So these are certain things, that led to the rise of communicative syllabus and the task-based syllabus. Now, what is communicative syllabus? And what is the main objective of communicative syllabus? The name itself tells us that we should improve the communication of the learner in English. That is the main objective. It should enable the students to communicate in the target language very easily. This is the main objective of this syllabus. And what is the focus of this communicative syllabus? Where like it always focus on the students and their performance. Always. And the students should understand like where and why they are using some words or some grammar forms while speaking. They should know, and depending on their needs, they should learn that language accordingly. Okay, that is what this syllabus focus much. And according to Littlewood, he says that this communicative approach, it opens a wider doors for understanding the language and its usage. Particularly, he says that this considers language not just in the form of vocabulary or grammar, but in terms of communicative functions. In what way we are applying or using this language in the outside the classroom. And he also stated that he says that to teach this syllabus to the learners, they could also help the learners to manipulate the structures of the foreign language. For example, I say any sentence you can take, and I say that yesterday I met my friend in the market. Yesterday I met my friend in the market. Now he can play, once he understands the structural part of the language, he can use this language accordingly without violating the rules of norms of the language. I came across my friend in the market yesterday. He can change. He can write it anyway. He can change the vocabulary that he used. In the first sentence, I met my friend in the market. Yesterday, I met my friend in the market. Yesterday, I came across my friend in the market. Once he is aware of the structure, the grammatical and the grammar and vocabulary of the language, he can easily manipulate the structures of the target language as per his convenience. But remember, that should follow all the norms without violating any rule. He should use that way. And let us see here. What are the principles of communicative language? This language, this communicative syllabus, it helps us to understand the conceptual and functional meaning of the target language. What is conceptual meaning, and what is this functional meaning of the language? The kind of skills that we are trying to improve. First thing, we are trying to improve the grammar, and the students are enabled to gain knowledge in the grammar part, grammar of the language, the semantics, the meaning that goes with this language, and the knowledge of using these terms in the language. And then the kinds of skills. What skills we are trying to focus, we are trying to improve. What skills of the students we are trying to improve. LSRW, right? How we should improve them. So through practice, for example, you give as role play or a situation there, and or else you can divide the students into groups and ask them to discuss on a particular topic. For example, you ask them to study about the Abdul Kalam, right? Study about Abdul Kalam. Then divide them into groups, and these interact with their peer groups, and you have to put a condition there to speak only in English, only in the target language. So what is happening? The interaction is taking place in the target language. All right. As a result, they are trying to improve their spoken language. All right, the speaking skills. Similarly, you might ask them to listen to something and try to say the same thing again to you. Let them listen how well they are listening. You can improve their listening skills. So all these will come under this communicative syllabus, and you'll be focusing much on. As a language teacher, you'll be focusing much on the types of learning and teaching activities. What kind of activities should I administer to my students as per the communicative syllabus, a designed communicative syllabus, so as to improve the reading skill of my student? What should I do? I might think of many activities that go into this, right? I might think about, I might ask one or two students to read a passage, and I might ask each one to write what they have understood in their own words. Later, these are the kinds of activities as a language teacher we need to think. Understood? Everyone is silent here.
Yes, ma'am. Understood.
Yes?
Understood, ma'am.
I think you might be bored right from morning. You're listening to the classes. I understand that. But still, everyone, come on, active. Do you all understand what am I audible? Am I clear what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. So now let us look at this socio-cultural appropriateness. What is this socio-cultural appropriateness? Suppose you know the grammar rules of the language and socio-cultural rules. What are those? Like in English, for example, they'll call a spoon a fork. They have difference. They use spoon for something and they use fork for something. Whereas in Indian context, we might not use fork, right? We know only the spoon. But when we interact with the native speakers or with the people who are speaking target language, whose mother tongue is target language, then we happen to know their culture also, right? And then what we'll do, we know the grammar of the language and we know the culture of that language. Then this results in the very good, effective and sensible interaction with the other people in the target language. This will definitely improve. So that is one principle. Another one, here the role of the teacher in the communicative syllabus, she shouldn't monitor their learning process. The teacher should always be a facilitator. Just guide them whenever it is required. Who is doing all these things? Who is doing all these things? I don't want anyone to do anything as such. If you are bored, you can leave the class. Dear, whoever it is. What is all this happening? Yeah. Fine. So this is what is happening, right? And the role of the teacher is very important. She should play a passive role here, and the role of the learner should be very active. Am I going very fast, or is it okay?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Okay.
Madam, role of the teacher is the facilitator.
Facilitator.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Today only few members have joined. What happened to the others? Only 79 are there. Anyways, your attendance is noted, right? They will take care of that. Chat box, let me open that. So the teacher should be a mere facilitator, and she'll play a very important role there in the classroom. She has to think about or design some activities which will promote the communicative competence of the students. They'll improve their communication, okay, through those activities. Like I said, I'll give a situation. For example, I'll give a situation where one friend has to greet the other friend. It is her birthday. So how would she greet her friend? what is the the words that are that should be used there, and the tone that should be used, everything from A to Z of the language, they should be aware of that. So by designing these kind of activities, we can definitely improve the communication skills of the student. Okay, so the teacher plays a very important role here. She should be a facilitator. She should answer the questions of the students, right? She should be available to clarify their queries about the language, right? And she should also monitor their performance, how they are performing. She should know that. And if their performance is high, she should know the reasons. And if the performance is low, why they are performing low. The teacher should find out the reason for that also. And then she should motivate and encourage the students to use the language. Then only they will improve their communication skills. Now, sometimes the students make errors, and the teacher, some teachers, they just scold them on the face. There might be many teachers here in the group. Never do that. Never chide a student if he commits an error in the usage of the language, particularly, right? Because it is a teacher who you should tell them or correct them, so that you will help them in not making or in not repeating the same in future. Okay, that is one thing. And always try to design activities which are accuracy based as well as fluency based. Okay, and then one more thing, they say another principle of this syllabus is this communicator syllabus is learner centered. It is mostly the learner centered one, because you are giving freedom to your learners to learn the language in your presence. Okay, and you can give them language games, role plays, and some problem tasking funds, right? Teach language as communication rather than as a subject. Okay, and these activities definitely will help the students to improve their communication skills. Okay, and by giving a liberty or by giving freedom to the students in the teaching learning process means what? You are helping them to choose whatever they want to see, whatever they want to do. Everything should be done by using the target language. You're helping them. Don't say, no, you have to by heart this one, like in Narayana schools and Sri Chaitanya schools. I'll give one example here. All are listening?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'll give one example. There is a question. What is your name? Right? And the answer for this question is, my name is Sunita. Fine. So if the student doesn't understand the norms of the language or the structure of the language or socio-cultural aspects of the language, when I ask him, what is your name? He will tell me, she will tell me, my name is Sunita. And he'll get 5 out of 5 marks, right? Okay. And in the second stage, again, I might ask another student, what is your name? I don't ask it directly now this time. I'll change the question. I'll ask, are you Sunita? And that student will wonder, what is this? I learned what is my name, and my name is Sunita. But ma'am is asking a new question. She's asking me, are you Sunita? I did not learn it. Teachers did not teach us. Are you trying to get my point here?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
What is happening here? Whatever we are teaching, the students are unable to understand. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
And if that particular student would have understood, then she would have said, yes, it's me. I'm Sunita. Right. So this is what is happening even now, if you agree or disagree, but I have observed this. Yes or no?
Yes,
So always try to learn or try to, gauge the performance of the students every now and then, so that how we will know like what is their performance level and why they are behind the expected mark, or why they are ahead of the expected mark. Expected levels of the teacher, right? And that's why this syllabus comes under process oriented syllabus. And the characteristic features of the communicative syllabus. Here the most important one is we'll try to bring in the real life situations into the classroom, and we are helping our students to live those real life situations in his own terms and by using the target language. All right. So use of authentic materials. That is the main characteristic feature of this communicative syllabus. I just gave many examples like previously. You are inquiring about ELT course which could be available from IFLU. So how would you go ahead with that? Whom do you interact and how will you interact? Will you use a formal language there, depending on a person there, a clerk or a teacher whom you are interacting with? Are you using a formal tone, right? Are you using the appropriate vocabulary? Are you framing the sentence correctly while inquiring about all these things? So we focus on all these things. It's an authentic material that we are trying to provide, authentic situation that we are trying to provide to our students. They'll understand better. Yes or no? Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Please be active. Just now 2 hours I took your first year class, right? I'm continuing with this. Do you find me, very weak or tired? Do you? No,
ma'am.
No,
come on.
You are active, ma'am.
Try to be active also, you all in my class. Okay, so that is the main characteristic feature. And another one, the activities that we design and we try to administer to our students in a particular framework. Right, within this framework, I need to improve their communication skills. So, what kind of activities should I design? So, this is a very thought of the teacher, and teacher should work on this to improve or to design a very neat and sensible syllabus, which can activity, so that the students can take it up with that excitement to do that, right? We should create that kind of interest among our students. One
like
activity.
providing newspaper, ma'am.
Exactly. You can also get some cuttings of newspaper, which the matter which you feel you want to improve the vocabulary of your students. You can cut it up and try to take printouts or Xerox copies of that and give each student a piece of that. The copy of that. And then they try to read it. So what is happening here? They're developing their reading skills, and also they are trying to learn new vocabulary. Yes. So all these things can be taken into the classroom. And this is a very important role played by the teacher. The teacher should be responsible for all these things. And you can see, for your surprise, they'll come out with lots of new ideas. And they'll come out with how well they are improving their fluency, their language fluency. Yeah, the outcome will be superb. The outcome, that will be at a very good level. And the teacher, one more thing here to remember: whatever activity you try to give to your students to do, whatever task or whatever it is, you should guide them. Don't just leave them all for themselves. Guide them in the sense, don't tell that, no, you should do like this and you should do like this. Not like that. Just try to guide them in a way that they listen to you, they incorporate what all you have said, but again, they don't feel that you are trying to monitor or dominate them, or you are trying to monitor their learning process. Okay, in that way, you can be friendly with your student. Don't make friendship, but only be friendly with your student, right? That is there. And some students, they always tend to make errors, right? What kind of errors they are trying to make, and why? If you find a student committing error repeatedly, what kind of errors they are trying, and what is that? I mean, the area in which they are trying to make those errors. I am absent yesterday. I'm today. Yeah.
Grammatical.
Yes.
Grammatical past tense, present tenses.
Anything as such, like adopt, adapt, bank, bank also, like bank of the river, and bank, the place where we draw money and credit money, right? There are so many things, you can bring into your classroom.
Subject verb agreement.
Yes.
Subject verb agreement. They make mistakes.
Subject verb, concord. Yes. There is. He are going to the temple. Why are? Bread and butter. Bread and butter. Dash. My favorite breakfast. What should I use there? Which the verb form?
Is.
It is.
My.
Bread and butter. Bread and butter.
Is my.
Bread with butter. One second. I got the answers. Both the answers. What I'll explain. Bread and butter is my favorite breakfast. Bread and butter are my favorite breakfast. See, bread and butter, I am treating this as one idea. So it is a singular subject and it takes singular form of the verb. So which is the correct one now?
My.
Is the correct, right? Okay, another one. My teacher and my aunt. My teacher and my aunt. Or else another one I'll give. My uncle and my aunt. Dash, going on a picnic.
Are.
Is or are? Another example. My uncle and aunt. Dash, going on a picnic.
Uncle and aunt are going to the picnic.
They are going.
In the first context, my uncle and my aunt, I am treating them as two subjects. So I use are. In the second context, I am using both as one subject. My uncle and aunt is going on a picnic. Did you get my point? So I mean, Lingaya has raised this Concord one. You can bring in so many exercises into this as such. Okay, and it becomes very. Your teaching and learning process will be very much fruitful, right? And while speaking, also, they might commit errors. Try to correct those errors in your own way. Yes. And always give instructions, clear instructions to your students. So, and also tell them, like, give them guidelines how to solve a particular activity or how to do a particular activity, right? Don't ever just leave them like that. And
when I'm doing my schooling now, ma'am, actually to learn the languages, if you make any mistake, so they used to collect the fine. Like, if I speak a word wrong, so they used to collect 25 paisa. So even that is also a correct thing to follow.
We can do that. Not imposing more fine, amount of that, but we can do that. See, I studied in St. Anne's, and even in our school, we had that kind of thing. The thing is that, like, we shouldn't use any other language. We should interact only in English. So there they imposed fine on us when we spoke in Telugu or something like that. So, but I was very keen on eating mangoes available in the canteen. So I never spoke in any other language. I happened to save those 20 paisa and 25 NP and 50 NP and all that. I remember. Yes, this is also can be done there. And what is like the purpose here, the student teacher interaction and student interaction, a healthy student teacher interaction, a healthy student interaction will be developed by adopting this communicative syllabus in a classroom, right? And not only that, when they in this process they try to improve their fluency level also of the language. They improve their communication, okay, and they try to interact with their peer groups in the target language very often, every now and then. You might have noticed, in most of the language classes, some people are very silent. Some people speak like that, right? Why they are very silent? There might be many reasons. Again, I don't want to deviate from this. There might be but by adopting this communicative syllabus, what we are doing, we are trying to bring them together. Like if I divide the students into groups, and each group is assigned an activity to do, and that group might have a fast learner, a slow learner, or a fluent speaker, and the one who always stumble for words and all that. Everyone, it's a mixed group of students. But what happens at the end of the day? They all get well mingled up, and they try to interact with each other without any fear and all. And they learn from the others. They teach others. Everything happens here. So that is one significant factor. Yeah. Somebody was saying something. Another one here is you should remember that whatever you are trying to design activities, or whatever you are trying to teach through this communicative syllabus to your students, either to improve their language skills, or grammar, or vocabulary, or their fluency levels, anything as such, you should be careful about the norms of the language, okay? Because if I say Maheshwari is a studious, Maheshwari is a good student in my class, that makes some sense. All right. If I say Maheshwari student good in my class, that will not make any sense. So as a teacher, we need to focus much on the norms of the language too when we are trying to design an activity. Okay. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
madam. Yes, ma'am.
No, madam.
Yes, ma'am, it's clear.
Good. And
Madam, I have a question.
yes.
Madam, could you tell classroom activities to improve communicative skills, madam? The possible classroom activities.
Definitely, I have been discussing all these activities. No, I told role plays, situation-based activities you can give, right? And for example, like how to greet a person, and how to apologize a person, how to speak to a teacher, and how to speak to a friend, right? Not just in the spoken form of it, communicative in the sense, you can even give them in the other forms, like, not just the spoken, but in terms of situations. Give a situation, ask them to say it aloud. They can think of many other activities. We'll do it later. In task-based also, we have so many other activities as such. Okay?
Thank you, madam. Okay.
And the culture. Okay. Actually, I eat with my hand. I eat food with my hand. But in the Western culture, they eat food with a spoon. And that spoon, okay, I know that spoon. I have seen in a movie, I know that. But I don't know about the fork. So when I try to interact with a person, a native speaker, or with a person who is already having some knowledge about the culture of the target language, it becomes easy for me to learn more and more things from him. Okay, when it happens like, I mean, it is they get benefited. Both will get benefited. The other person will understand your culture, and you will understand his culture, and accordingly, you try to communicate among yourselves. So that also is a very important one to be observed here. And they say the use of non-verbal behavior. In India, while crossing the roads, I mean, they don't look for that red signal to come, right? They just say like this to all the vehicles, stop, and they'll be going like that. But in the culture, in the foreign countries where they speak the target language, they don't show your hand like this and cross the road. They follow certain rules, right? And what is happening sometimes in our culture, any body, gestures, can you remember? Like in our culture, we do that, but in their culture, they might not accept that gesture. Yeah, winking. The winking, in the foreign, in the culture of the target language, the people, they want to, ironically say something, or they want to make fun of something, or they want to, in a humorous tone, they want to do something, they try to wink and signal to the other person. But in India, in the previous days, you can't wink at a person, especially Nagamani. This is paper 1, I think. Paper 1, English language teaching. See, they are attending now, they are asking for which paper. So these are some of the gestures. I don't remember right now, but you can just find out if you have those things in your mind. And one more thing, like wearing Mangal Sutra is a sign of, being a devoted wife to a particular person, right? Or something like that. But in their culture, they don't wear Mangal Sutra and all that, right? Okay, but to understand the culture also, this is very important. You have to pay a greater attention to the culture of the everyday lifestyle, a culture of the people who use this target language. The fork example, spoon and fork example, is the best one here. And then in this communicative syllabus, teacher always evaluates not only the students' grammar or vocabulary, but also their fluency. So that one we have done, and this evaluation can be done formally or informally. In a classroom, like right now, I am trying to interact with you people. I have heard somebody saying languages. The pronunciation is wrong. It is languages, right? It is wrong. So I can correct immediately. I might not say, no, you are pronouncing it wrong. I can just say, I can repeat that. Okay, you mean to say languages? Then immediately that particular student, she or he will learn it in the very next stage, all right? So here, a teacher should always, evaluate the student's performance, formally or informally, and he should be as an advisor or communicator. So these are some of the characteristic features of communicative syllabus. And what are the techniques and materials that are used in the communicative syllabus? First thing, I said dividing the students into groups or pairs. We try to bring them together. That itself, we are trying to enhance the interaction levels between two students, between a teacher and a student, or among the students, or among the teacher and all the students in the class. That is one. Second one, getting in authentic materials, like Ruhina has just mentioned. Get some newspaper readings into the classroom. That will create, or that will instill interest in the learners to know something or to learn something. For example, in today's class, I might get a write-up on why Sindhu lost silver or gold medal in the Olympics. It's the present topic. It is a contemporary one, and as soon as I get that into the classroom, most of the people who are interested in sports, they might quickly come up with their own versions, their own explanations. So what is happening here? Am I trying to improve their communication? Lingaya, this is also one activity where you can pay attention to.
Yes, ma'am. Got it, madam.
Okay, so these kind of things we can do, right? And bringing in authentic materials, not just like weather forecast, bus and train timetables, some menus. In a restaurant, there might be a different menu. In another restaurant, there might be another menu. So if you bring in that, the foodies can, happily, participate or in the classroom. Okay. And what is our motto as a teacher? They should actively participate in our class. And any other authentic materials that you can think of? Pamphlets, yes. Or any course schedule, right? That also you can get into the classroom. What else?
Audio records, madam. Audio records.
Audio records also, even videos also, like videos which show communication or exchange of dialogues between two people, how to initiate a conversation, how to continue a conversation, right? And, you can get in some audios or videos also into the classroom and show them. Then you just stop that video there and ask them to continue with those dialogues, right? See, in this way, you are the master. A teacher is the master, and you have all the rights to bring in any kind of innovative ideas, any kind of innovative, materials into your classroom so as to improve the communication skills of your students. Okay, so this is what happens. And you can also come up with some games, language games and activities. If you want, you can just go through Rebecca Oxford's simulation of gaming.
Word games, ma'am.
Yeah?
Word games.
Language games.
Yes.
Like, for example,
Spelling last, like Antakshari, we can make the students to do the word game also.
Very
Also,
good.
ma'am.
Yeah, very good, very good. Anything else you would like to suggest? What kind of language games and activities you will bring into the classroom to encourage your students and to make them participate?
Can we give puzzles?
Word building.
Yes, scrambled sentences, puzzles,
Picture recognition, ma'am.
picture strips, yes.
Word building also.
All that is there in your textbook, and you are giving more examples out of the textbook. Very good. Go ahead. What more?
Spell bee game.
In 1 second, they can tell the how many items, things are there in a classroom. That will be the quicker mind will be there na, for them.
Exactly.
Like pencil, continuously they have to tell in a 1 second.
Okay, now once they identify those things, then you should also try to design another task on another activity about that. You can just see others like make sentences using that particular item in their own sentences, right? This is also building story form. Yes, you can just give the hints and ask them to say a story on that, or you can give some activities, like you come across this in task-based syllabus, reasoning gap activities, fill in the blanks. You can talk about a story first few lines, and you can ask them to conclude the story on their own. You are not giving the climax part of it. Let them do it on their own. Let them say it aloud. So these kind of activities like language games, activities, scramble sentences, dialogues, that you give dialogues and jumble them and ask them to arrange them where they follow all that unity, coherence and cohesive logical arrangement of the ideas. Like how did they arrange one after the other, right? And role plays is a very important role. Yes, somebody call me out.
Jumbled sentences to form a story.
Exactly, jumbled sentences to form a story. And what more? Very good. I like your class. All of that.
One student can give questions and others can be answered. Asking questions and answers.
Asking questions and answers regarding a particular topic, right?
Yes.
So here they can gain knowledge also about a particular topic, right?
Story building.
Yeah, story building. That is what Annapurna has just now said. Anyway, now coming to the another process-oriented syllabus, task-based syllabus. Okay, and this task-based syllabus generally focuses on the classroom processes, how you are conducting your class, what you are teaching, how you are teaching, and what are the ways or strategies you are using or you are adopting in your teaching learning process. Okay, and you are trying to focus on the linguistic items that students will learn, and also and to improve their communicative skills after your class. So what are these linguistic items means what? All the grammar, vocabulary, everything comes there. Communication, like say for example, usage of phrases, usage of one-word substitutes, idioms for that case, right? They should know everything, and your teaching, the terms you use in your classroom or the things you take into your classroom, should encourage the students, should inspire the students to be there and to attend your class, not just for one day, right? For all, yes, linguistic items are not, but all the rules of the language. I just read the...
Learners, ma'am? For slow learners?
Slow learners, you should prepare a lesson plan in a way that you should neither avoid slow learners nor avoid the fast learners. And it's a mixed heterogeneous group of students in your class. So what you do, you should plan it very carefully. Like what kind of activities? For example, you take this role play only, right? I might select two students who are shy and who don't like to speak, even though they know the language. And there are two other students who are fluent speakers. And there might be two other students who come from Telugu medium background and they don't want to open themselves. But what I'll do, I'll give them some time and I'll try to make them sit together. I form a group of 6 here and I'll give a topic to them. I might ask
them to group discussions.
Yeah, exactly as such. But I should also be careful in giving them the topic. The topic should be the topic should interest the learners, not the teacher. Right? I don't like sports. So I can't, but my students like sports. So I'll give some topic related to the sports because they should learn, they should improve their linguistic ability, right? The usage of the language, their communication skills. Okay, Richards, Platt and Weber also, they said that this task-based syllabus is a syllabus which is organized around task. It is activity-oriented syllabus. There are n number of tasks to teach them rather than to write on the blackboard and teach say something about that. Okay. For example, the same sentence you can take, I'm absent yesterday. What? You was absent yesterday? You were absent yesterday. I might say like this. Now they will think, okay, I should say I were absent. No, I were. I is a singular subject. Where? No, it doesn't go. I was. Yes, ma'am, I was absent yesterday. Now, through task also, you give task in a way that they learn to the most extent. They learn all by themselves with the guidance of the teacher. Teacher should be there, right? And she will just give the instructions, and she will tell you how to solve that task, and she will give orders to use only the target language while performing that task. Okay. And activities like, telephone conversation. You can ask them to go in, initiate a telephone conversation. You can first, you yourself can speak with a student. Later, you can assign the same task to 2 students out there in the classroom. Let them speak up. And what happens? You ask other students to observe and come up with their ideas, with their vocabulary that should be used in a telephonic conversation. Okay, so all the students will be observing these students conversing with each other in a telephone. And you will have an idea, like he might have used a wrong word. Which is not an appropriate word, I should say. He is using an inappropriate word there. So you should be able to say that. So what happens under the teacher's guidance? Teacher will tell you like which is the appropriate one, either student A's or student B's. Okay. So these are certain things, will keep on happening in the task-based syllabus. On page 373, there is a model of the task-based syllabus project, right? Prabhu's Bangalore project. It gives valuable inputs for a task-based syllabus itself. So here, we have taken 3 types of task. The first one, information gap activity. That is transfer of given information. For example, I might give you a bar graph which shows the performance of my students in the month of Jan, month of March, month of October, and month of December. I'll just give you the graph, bar graph. And I'll ask you to develop a paragraph out of that. Now the students, you can divide the students or you can give this task to individual student. They will try to develop a paragraph on that. Or else I can just provide a route map drawing to all my students, and I might ask them, okay, I might call upon 2 students, and 1 student should reach the destination, the set or the marked destination in that map, and 1 student should direct him to that destination. So what I'll do, I'll try to, I'll ask them to interact and try to guide the other student to reach his destination. So here also I'm trying to ask them to pass on the information, right, from one group to the other group. And in the process of this, they might come up with new information also. In that route map, I might not mention any landmark. The students, while doing this activity, they might say, ma'am, there is a lake here. The route map doesn't contain that. I can add it. So that is what happens in the information gap activity. And then the reasoning gap activity. Here, the thought processes, the cognitive process of the students will be evaluated, like their creativity levels, the way they understand the things and how they try to read in between the lines and all. For example, I'll tell that I took classes for MA second year students every day. They all are very studious, and everyone responded in my class, and they had given their 100% in listening to my lectures and understanding my lectures. They are very good students. In fact, they are very hardworking students.
Okay, ma'am.
But at times, I feel so bored, and I feel so. I feel so negative about the class because not all are active in the class. In this paragraph, I praised about you people. At the same time, I am saying something about you. They are good. Yeah, they are good, but I expect more from them. That means what? You should infer the meaning out of that. Whether we are good or whether we are bad or whether we are average. I am trying to say that they are, they are at the average level. Neither they are excellent nor they are worst. Okay, so this kind of cognitive process will happen in the students' minds. All right, that is reasoning gap, assuming. Okay, practical reasoning, logical induction and deduction things. You might, if you go for any competitive test, first they test you in this, right? Aptitude test will be there, diagnostic test will be there, and reasoning test will be there. Okay, teacher goes with the book, and doctor goes with the dash. Reason out. What? Stethoscope, right? Can I say like that? So these are kind of activities you can design for your students. Am I clear? Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
No doubt.
Okay. Others? Ganesh and all, only, students are more active in this class, I think. What about boys? There are no boys in your class, only a couple of them I can see. Lingaya,
We are
Ganesh.
there, madam.
Then what happens? You are not responding at all. Okay, this is what happens, right? And the next one, next type of class.
Madam, can you give one example of reasoning gap activity? Means
Another example you want?
reasoning gap activity. Same, we have given information gap activity like the graph, no ma'am. In reasoning gap activity, which activity we have to
I
give to
already
our
gave
students?
you reasoning gap activity only. I gave a passage on about your class, how my students are there in MA second year. It is reasoning gap activity only. You are not active.
I'm active, but
Okay. Okay, fine. So, infer meaning from the given passage. That is one of the reasoning gap activity. And one more example, like, student, teacher, student, book, or a student, teacher, doctor,
patient.
Okay, this is an example for reasoning gap activity. Simple one. Okay, and then now there are many other things also. They give mathematical oriented exercises also, like 2 square, 4 square, like again a gap. You have to fill that. You have to reason it out. Okay, first 2 2s are 4. Then they give 5, and after that 5 square they give. 5 5s are 25. Gap. So which number should be there after 25? You have to reason it out. 2 square is 4. We got the next number as 5. So here 5 square is 25. Then the next number should be 26. Okay. So in that way, these are the kind of activities which fall under reasoning gap. Next, the third type is opinion gap activity. Here, these activities will involve identifying and articulating a personal preference. Their feelings, their attitudes, in response to a given situation. I was coming to the college, and I have seen a small boy running across the road. And immediately there was a cab which would almost ram him. but he applied sudden brakes and stopped. This is a situation. So I might ask them, what are your observations? How do you deal with this kind of situation, right? Anything as such you can think of, like, a teacher gave you assignments and you couldn't complete those assignments in time. That situation I'll give you. So you will try to, the third person, you'll try to reason out, why didn't she submit the assignments in time? Were there any problems at her place? What were the circumstances that stopped her from submitting the assignments? Or was she lazy to complete those assignments? That's why she did not submit. So these are the opinion gap activities. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
Yeah. And what is a task?
Yes, ma'am.
Task. How do you define a task?
Task is an activity.
Yeah, according to Long, a task is a piece of work undertaken for oneself or for others. We give a task to do and you will try to do it, right? That is what. And for example, he has given an example. Examples of tasks include painting a fence, dressing a child, filling out a form, buying a pair of shoes, the way you negotiate, the way you bargain and all that also comes into this. Making an airline reservation, how do you reserve a ticket for yourself through online? So a task is meant the 101 things people do in everyday life. Everything that we are doing is a task. Teaching is a task, listening is a task, our class itself is a task, right? And Canlin has offered some of the criteria for selecting tasks. How to select good task? First thing, that task should, whichever task we select, it should promote, it should be sensible. I mean, it should sense properly, like in terms of meaning, in terms of purpose or negotiation. These are the facts, right? And then it should attract the interest of the students. Then it should also, it should, through that task, we should be able to draw objectives for the communicative needs of the learners. Then a good task will always allow flexible ways in resolving that task. And it offers different methods for the students to solve that task or to finish that task, right? And a good task also involve learner contributions, attitudes. Like, when I give a task, if all the students are actively participating in that and they are enjoying in solving that or in doing that task, then what might be the reason? So all their opinions, advices, suggestions are also taken into account when I design another task in future. Okay, and always these good tasks are always challenging, and they are risk taking, of course, and they also define the problem to be faced by the learners, and these problems can be solved by the learners with the help of the teacher. The teacher can guide them in doing that. And a good task always involve language use in solving the task, and evaluation also. The learner as well as the teacher, both of them should evaluate the task, whether it proved to be beneficial or not, from the teacher's perspective as well as from the learner's perspective. And a good task always tries to bring out the innate abilities of the learner. The capacities, the hidden talents, the hidden capacities of the learners. And a good task also provides so many opportunities for the learners to communicate properly, okay, and to learn more effectively, right? And to provide opportunities. See here, you might have seen people learning mathematical additions and all that on that, what do you call that? Abacus or abacus, right? That is a task, that we give for the students. What they are doing, it brings out their innate abilities. It brings out their creativity, and it also helps them to learn mathematics, mathematics in the sense how to add, how to subtract, how to identify the colors of those balls, which color. They'll be learning colors also. So many things will be learned through one single task, and that is, of course, a very good task. Do you agree with me? Yes. And actually, a good task, it gives scope for the teacher to give her feedback, and it also gives scope for the learner to learn more things, right? And a good task always sensitizes learners' needs and learners' way of learning the language. It also promotes critical awareness about the language learning. Why should I put verb? Why should I use singular verb with the singular subject? They try to analyze and they try to learn the language. And a good task is always cost effectiveness. I mean, it doesn't cost much, but it gives a lot. Okay, we are investing more rather than spending on it. Okay, so these are some of the criteria. And according to Doyle, a task will need to specify the following. A task should fulfill these things. What is that? The products student are to formulate, the things that student try to learn, and the things that student try to practice in, the operations that are required to generate the product. So when they want to become a very good fluent speaker, what kind of methods or what methodologies goes into his learning process to make him more communicative. Okay, the resources available to the student to generate the product. Okay, I'll be using this method to improve my communication. But what should I do? What resources? Yes, I listen to BBC News in English every day. Yes, I read editorial page of Hindu newspaper every day, so that I can improve my language. Right. So what are the resources? These are the things, 3 things that a task should specify. Right. And Shevelson and Stern also suggested some planning instructional task where the teacher needs to consider what subject matter should be taught. Should I teach grammar? Should I teach vocabulary? Or should I try to teach listening skills or any other language skill? What materials should I select? What materials will be appropriate for developing these skills or this subject matter among my student? And what kind of activities should I administer to them? How should I design these activities to, accomplish the objectives that I set for my students after completing I set for my students to achieve after the completion of the task. Okay, these certain things, and I will set some goals for the task. The teacher should be aware of all this, and the teacher should also be aware of what exactly my student need. He is weak in the use of tenses, so I'll focus much on that topic. And I also consider the interest of students. I also consider interest of my students, and I'll also see that I will not forget paying attention to the socio-cultural context of the instruction. Okay. And and now Long also, like who had been using needs analysis as a basis, he also offered a procedure to develop the task-based syllabus.
Teacher, my mom is playing.
And the steps in this process are these things, Yes, Radhi, didn't you give anything to eat or any snacks to your daughter? Daughter or son, I don't know. He sounds so young. Give him something what he wants, so he will not complain about you. Rani Tejinder.
Yes, madam.
Yeah. So fine. Very good break. right? And
ma'am,
and what
ma'am.
is, yeah.
Ma'am, how is task is challenging and risk based?
They are risk based and they are challenging. For example, I want to teach my students about any language aspect, right? For example, idioms. I want to teach my students idioms. So I started off teaching on Cloud9. It's an idiom. What do you mean by Cloud9?
I don't know, madam.
Picture of something.
Happiness, extreme happiness. When I secured first rank in my class, I was on Cloud9. I mean, I'm very happy on Cloud9. So there is a risk. If I try to prepare a task and give this task to my students to do, for example, they might take it in some other sense. On Cloud9, okay, there might be 9 clouds in the sky. So madam is referring to cloud number 9. Can I? Is it a risk one? Is it a challenging one?
Yes, ma'am, definitely.
Yeah. So these are the kinds.
Ma'am, so that we can we do one thing? Is it useful in giving a basic input to the students to improve their communicative skills?
Definitely, we have to. What are we for? Lingaya, we teachers are there to give them valuable inputs, right? So, in preparing task-based syllabus, did you understand, Lingaya?
Yes, I got it, madam. But one thing, one thing, madam.
Yeah,
I have learned that grammar should not be taught in isolation, but it should be taught apart from the text. So how can we?
As per your convenience and as per the students' convenience. If their students are comfortable, you can teach them in the class. Always we teach in groups, right? Teach for groups. So,
Okay.
yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam, all schools are focusing on only lessons. They are telling just like stories, meanings, question and answers, but they are not explaining grammar.
That is very bad. Like, they can give the gist of the lesson, the story or whatever it is. The
स्वतंत्र ये क्या है टीचरों इटलाऊं
Sophia, mute yourself. So, Annapurna, listen. They can give the summary of that lesson, but before that, they can ask each student to read a paragraph and ask them to underline any new words that they come across, and then ask them to find out meanings for those new words. Or else you can also ask the students which is a simple sentence, which is a complex sentence in this passage, and what
Synonyms.
okay, all that you can ask them to do.
I am doing like that only, madam. I am teaching Telugu. Each and every bit I am only telling to them. 1 or 2 bits I am explaining. Next bits they are doing. But in English they are giving just like class work. They are writing on the board. They are taking. That's it. The grammar.
Yeah, that would be fine. So clear? Shall I proceed? Shall I go ahead?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
yes
Now, according to Long, these are the steps in the process of developing a task-based syllabus. The first one, first you need to conduct a needs analysis. You should know what are the needs of your learners, right? You list out them, and then you try to think of the task. Which kind of task will go with which, will go to develop which skill or which language concept of the student. Okay, you have to classify those target tasks into task types. Now from the task types, then you derive pedagogical tasks. Like you will you try to invent some target task. From the target task, you divide them into task types. Okay, all these these number of tasks will go into a category which will improve the fluency of which will improve the communication skills of the learners. These things will go into a criteria, into a category which will improve the use of tenses of the students. So you divide them as per that. And after doing that, now pedagogical classes, like your finding out, like your find outs, your observations. I might give these tasks to the under this category, but I can also use one task for both the things, to teach both two or more concepts of the language. So I will take them, I will and put them under pedagogical task. Okay. Then after that, after doing that, I will select and sequence all these pedagogical tasks. Okay, which task will go first, which task second, and so on. So in this way, we can prepare the task-based syllabus. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Clear, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
This is our 4th class, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So much of matter. Okay, I'll be having only one more class, the last class. So I'll complete the methods, the remaining methods. Testing and evaluation.
Page number, ma'am.
Yeah.
Page number.
Page number 382.
Thank you, ma'am.
So testing and evaluation, they are the two components of language teaching. Testing is a very important part of teaching because it provides information. I mean, it gives us information about the performance of the learner, how much he has learned, how much he understood the language. All right. And evaluation comes at the end, like, if certain syllabus is used, he had performed well. Okay, not just the language comprehensibility, but also the other factors like the syllabus, other factors also come into consideration, right? In evaluating the students. Now, why should we evaluate? What is the need for us to test our students?
To rectify their mistakes.
Yeah?
To correct them.
Give a feedback.
How far they understand the language, how well they understood the language, and how effectively they will be using the language. We test these three things at the end of the course or during the course. The growth of the learner, right, in terms of language learning, right, we try to test that. And the test will be designed accordingly. And here there are, like, Geeta Nagaraj, she said that teaching and testing will always go together. They go in tandem with each other. I am teaching you, at the same time I am trying to interact with you. When I am interacting with you, I am trying to test you in some or the other way, right? Like how much you understood what I said, and what could be your responses, and I will judge and evaluate those responses, right? That is what Geeta Nagaraj has said. And the characteristics of a test. What are the characteristics of a test, right? How to develop a proper test, a feasible one, a proper one. How to construct a test. There are some aspects of a test that should be considered, and those are the characteristics of a good, a test, a normal test. First thing, why should we conduct the test? The purpose of the test. Second one, I should also be aware of the knowledge of my students and their background. Third one, the accuracy of measurement. What exactly I want to test among my students. Fourth one, Ruhi, mute yourself. Next one. Okay, what kind of test should I give them? Multiple choice, fill in the blanks, or short answer question types, or descriptive type, and all. And then the scoring and reporting. How should I score them? what grades should I give them? I mean, I try to standardize those scores. Like above this, they will be attaining A grade, and below that B grade, and below that it is C grade, something like that. And test economy. I mean, I'm not spending much on that. Neither, yeah. But I'm trying to test what I exactly want, and acceptability. Yes, this test should be acceptable in the society. In the society, in the sense, the parents should agree with that, the students should agree with that, and the management also should agree with that type of test that we are trying to conduct. Now, this is the normal characteristics of a normal test. Now, what are the characteristics of a good test? There are three things you should remember. The first one, validity. What exactly you want to measure? What exactly you want to test your student? In what exactly, you want to assess which language aspect you are trying to test. Okay, that is validity. If it is IELTS, GRE, TOEFL, CAT, all these are valid tests, right? What for they are testing? There is a purpose, and we'll see that in different types of tests, right? And reliability. I mean, there should be consistency. Like whenever you try to administer that test, it should maintain the same decorum, and it should maintain the same thing, right? At the first level, when we administer that a particular test to different groups of the students in the same class, how did they perform? And next time when I apply the same thing for the another different group of students of the same class, it should also have the same, almost the same scores, which will tell about the reliability of that test. Now, feasibility. What is feasibility? It shouldn't be time consuming, and it shouldn't be expensive in terms of its development, administration, and scoring. And this should be easily available to everyone, and everyone should accept the pattern and the type and the purpose of the test, right? So all these factors are counted. And a good test is always based on a clear statement of the objectives. I'm conducting this test for the students to get admission into the foreign universities. Okay, so that is my objective. Now, a good test is always valid. It is like, for example, if a test of pronunciation, I conduct a test to test the pronunciation of my students, right? And I should measure only that pronunciation. I shouldn't go for the grammar thing and all that he uses in the test. Okay, so that is one, right? And a good test is always reliable. The one which we have seen, it should maintain. This year I conducted the test, like for example, NET JRF is there. This year I conducted. Next year I'll be conducting the same with a different questions, but the pattern remains the same. All right, that consistency should be there, and it also should ensure scoring. Most of the times, subjective test. It is easy for us to score marks in multiple choice pattern test rather than in a descriptive paper. Descriptive test or a subjective test. Okay. So, for example, someone might ask me to write about myself. About yourself. So I'll write about myself, and Maheshwari writes about herself. Ganesh writes about himself. But all the three might not score the same. There is a difference. But in tests like multiple choice, the option is A, B, or C. One option is the right answer. If all the three of us will mark the right answer, then we all will get one mark. The same scoring will be getting. Okay? Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the test should be practical and economical, and it should,
Yes, ma'am.
a test should give full scope for the syllabus concerned. When I teach simple present tense to my students, I should test my students in simple present tense only. Okay, I don't teach future tense and I'm testing them in the future tense. What is this? Just a second, I'm closing this one. How to remove this white thing here?
It's just screen sharing.
Screen share, ma'am.
Screen share, yes.
The screen share, it will.
Why I can't, you cannot start screen share while the other one. Okay. The host has helped me out, I think. Okay, good. So these are certain things that go with a good test factors, and always, good test will always keeps in mind the needs of the learners, not the needs of the teachers, right? Now language test, types of test. How many types of tests are there? And language test, especially, they are classified.
Recording stopped.
Huh? What happened? I am the host and the recording also stopped. These people left at 5 only, I think. Our class is at 5 till 5:30, right? Okay, fine. So language tests are broadly classified into two types: testing skills and testing knowledge of the content. Okay, there is a lesson on Shakespeare. I'll be testing I'll test about the content, like how much my students have known about Shakespeare and his works, right? Testing skills in the sense, like TOEFL is a IELTS. All these are the test which test the language skills. And you can just read out this. Testing can be subjective or objective. Objective in the sense multiple choice, matching exercises, true or false items, all that falls under objective test. And subjective in the sense like in interviews or in essay writing or short answer question types, descriptive question types, all that comes under subjective test. And sometimes we conduct oral test and written test. Oral test also, we keep asking questions and others will be trying to answer them. Writing test will give them some questions and others will be writing answers for that. Okay? I'll try to record this one because I'm the host now.
Recording in progress.
Yeah. He made me the host and he left. Poor thing. He might have come early in the morning, no? The people in the office. Right? Fine. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
Okay. Now we also conduct tests which are based on language components like vocabulary, grammar, punctuation, then composition also, right? Structure of the sentences and all that. That comes under punctuation. And the test can be direct or indirect. A direct test measures one's communicative competence in almost real life situation, whereas an indirect test it will be testing in a way like testing one's reading or one's speaking ability, right? And then classification of test. So how are these tests classified? They are classified into aptitude test, proficiency test, achievement test, diagnostic test. What are aptitude tests? Anybody?
Like you have given examples of teacher, student, then doctor.
Those are like, okay.
Music, painting, Scientific
It can be
reasoning,
reasoning.
mathematical ability, etc.
Suppose
These are the examples.
I want a musical teacher in my academy. So I'll conduct an aptitude test first. I should know how much she know about the music, and I should also know if she has the ability to learn the music. Okay, I have a music academy where I teach music to my students. But I am very strict in observing only few of them. Seats are limited. So I'll conduct an aptitude test, like how much knowledge they have in music, and do they have an ability to learn the music. Okay, in those facts, I'll be testing them, and then I'll observe the one who clears that test. Clear?
Screening test.
Yeah, like screening test. Very good. Okay, then proficiency test. Proficiency tests like TOEFL, IELTS, all these come under proficiency test. Okay. For example, even placement tests are proficiency test. Right? I mean, through this test, we'll try to understand whether learner is ready. Is he ready to go and join a foreign university? Is he ready to do this job in my company? Right? I might be thinking in that way, and on those lines, I'll try to design a test. Okay, whoever backs that, they'll be observed. Yeah.
Ma'am, aptitude means it will get by birth, no ma'am? It is for not all ma'am.
Those qualities might be there in you, but how do I know? Until I conduct a test, then only you will come up with your abilities, your capacity, right, with your knowledge. I should gauge that knowledge and then observe aptitude test. Okay. So proficiency tests are like admission to courses, jobs, etc. come under this. And another one, achievement test. What are these achievement tests? Mostly they are conducted in schools and colleges. Like what all test you'll get first rank in the class. That is an achievement test, and on exams and all that. Okay, all these tests comes under achievement test. Diagnostic tests are these are the tests which are used in planning remedial activities. For example, I'll conduct a diagnostic test to. I started a new course to teach English communication skills to my students. So I need to know like which areas I should focus more. I'll conduct a diagnostic test. Through that test, I'll know that how many students are weak in using tenses, how many students are weak in using appropriate vocabulary and all that. So based on that, I will design my course contents. Okay. That is diagnostic test. And there are two types of evaluation. We already discussed that in the previous class. That is formative evaluation and the summative. Yeah, summative evaluation, right? What is formative evaluation and what is summative evaluation, if you remember? Can you please tell me?
During the course, we are conducting formative, and at the end of the course, we are conducting summative.
Very good. So ongoing evaluation or continuous evaluation is nothing but the formative evaluation, and terminal evaluation or end-on evaluation is the summative evaluation, right? Now ongoing evaluation means what? Regularly we are trying to conduct some test and we are trying to take the feedback also at every stage of our instruction. Okay, suppose I taught you unit 1 today, right? And tomorrow I'll be evaluating you. Like I'll be asking oral questions, how much you remember, right? So if I feel that if you answered me correctly, then I think that you understood it. If you don't answer me correctly, then I will replan everything again. What exactly I should teach you. Okay, like in planning, preparation, production and application. These are certain things I'll focus much in the formative type of evaluation. So finally, this type of evaluation, formative evaluation, is aimed at improving the teaching learning process at every stage. Okay, and now, and this formative evaluation, it is also applied to any of the teaching and learning processes, like, designing syllabus, curriculum, methodology, materials, and anything as such. And the tools which are used in this type of evaluation are questionnaires, observation schedules, checklist, self-assessment forms, interviews, diaries, and any other test which satisfies these like planning, these factors: planning, preparation, production, and application. Okay, and then formative evaluation is regular intervals throughout. Summative evaluation. Summative evaluation at the end of the any course, at the end of the, suppose you the end exams, MA final year exams, that comes under summative evaluation. And this it is a total evaluation program, and the tools used here in this are examinations and tests. Your assignments, your end-on exams, final exams, everything fall under summative evaluation. And your results are also statistically interpreted. Like after that, we'll be interpreting your results. Okay, these are the students who fall in the distinction band. Okay, and these are the one who comes under first class. Second, so that in that way we will be interpreting your results. And summative evaluation is the final judgment of the performance of the students. The term and exams are the best examples for this summative evaluation. Any doubts in this? Am I clear?
No doubts, ma'am.
Yeah.
So what you do, I want you people to, after the class, relax for half an hour to 1 hour, then go through the components that I have discussed today. Okay, ELT paper is really very difficult. It is a, practicality, practical paper. So you need more practice, and you just read what I have discussed, and you try to memorize the examples that I have given to you at every point for each concept, right? And immediately what you do, you just jot them down on a piece of paper while preparing or while answering the important questions that I give you. If you can add this one to that, you can add this one to your answers, right? It makes your work easy, and it will prepare you also for exam. It will prepare you for the examinations. Am I clear?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any doubts? Right? So we'll be having the last class, right? Not tomorrow, I think we have the last class. So here, I'll be discussing 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th components, 4 components. And I'll be finishing my syllabus. Okay, my part of the syllabus. Am I clear?
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
I want everyone to attend the class.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Just text a message in the common group, because they will miss important things, some important examples that we give you. The explanation you will miss. If you read that, you will hardly understand some of the concepts there. You require explanation of those concepts. So better try to, attend the classes regularly. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Shall we leave now?
Yeah.
madam.
Yes.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
So 10 minutes there. I should give you some important questions. Don't leave the class. You're not reminding me. Okay, write down. Till where did I give you the important questions?
After that curriculum.
Acha.
Evaluation.
Types of
evaluation.
Till notional functional syllabus, I think I have given you the important questions.
After that, types of evaluation also you have given.
That is in the beginning only. I mean, somewhere we came across that, right? There itself I explained and I gave you the question. Fine. Now write down the important questions. Write an essay on the communicative syllabus and the task-based syllabus. Write an essay on the communicative syllabus and the task-based syllabus. Okay, done?
Done, ma'am.
Another question. What is the difference between structural syllabus and communicative syllabus?
Ma'am, once repeat, ma'am.
Difference between communicative syllabus and structural syllabus.
అది ఇప్పుడు నాకు వచ్చాక గేమ్ లో అప్డేట్ వచ్చిందని అప్డేట్ చేస్తారు మళ్ళీ నేను 2 minutes ఓకే మ్యామ్
Okay, ma'am.
Then the characteristics of a good test. Write a short account or a brief account on the characteristics of a good test. Done?
Yes, ma'am.
Explain the different types of test with examples. Explain the different types of test with examples. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Next one. Why should we सुने नहीं आ रहा. No. What is the need for evaluation? Explain the need for evaluation. Explain the need for evaluation in teaching learning process. Explain the need for evaluation in teaching learning process.
Okay, finish.
Done? Okay.
Done, ma'am.
I want everyone to write down answers for this, right? Okay, there is one question here. Ma'am, I have a question. How to make understand grammatical rules exactly? If you want to teach grammar rules, adopt grammar translation method, the rote learning method. The rules should be learned. That's all. But you try to help your students to use what he has learned in day-to-day conversations, in his conversations, in his interaction with his friends or teachers, right? Suppose, grammar rules, they should learn them. But at the same time, you see that you help them to use those grammar rules correctly in their conversations, in their, not just in the spoken form of the language, but while writing also. And one more thing, you can make your students to read a lot. There also, he'll come to know grammar, for example, tenses, what kind of tenses they are using, right? Somebody asked me this question in the chat box. Who's that? Is it clear?
Madam, one more question.
Yeah.
Now, could you recommend standard books or material for classroom activities?
You can search in the net. I think you will get, but I don't have anything in my mind right now to give that. Generally, I think and I just use it on my own. But there are books. You can just search it, right? Right now, I don't remember anything.
Okay.
Or else you can read the books, on the testing and evaluation. There are so many books, right? And on task-based syllabus also, there are so many books written. You will find different varieties of activities or varieties of tasks. You can just go through that. Not one particular book I can recommend you right now. Just go ahead with that.
Okay.
Okay, some people are asking about third question and fourth question. I don't remember which is third and fourth. You can just ask your friends and try to take down.
So write a short notes on characteristic account of a good test.
Yes.
That is third one.
Okay.
Characteristic account of a good test. That is third.
Please, can you repeat first question?
Write an essay, communicative syllabus and task-based syllabus.
Write an essay on communicative syllabus and task-based syllabus. Okay, Usma?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Nikat, I remembered my friend. Name was also Nikat. I did my graduation from Koti Women's.
Ma'am, excuse me.
Yeah.
How can I pronounce this word? Syllabus? Syllabus.
Which one? I did not get.
Syllabus.
Plural of syllabus.
It is syllabus.
Pronounce someone or
What do you want exactly from me? What is your doubt?
ma'am, syllabus is there na word. This word, how can I pronounce? Someone or pronounce like this syllabus.
No. You pronounce like this, syllabus. It is syllabus. Okay?
Okay.
What is your name, dear?
Ma'am, Swapna.
Swapna. Did you get Swapna? How do you pronounce that? Say it.
Syllabus.
Very good. Okay. What is this thing here? Reactions below our page. Okay. I got it.
Those are emoticons, ma'am.
yeah. I got it. I have seen. Okay, all then. See you all in tomorrow's class. Right?
Okay, ma'am.
Tomorrow will be my last class. Just see others also to join and try to listen and learn something. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Recording
madam.
stopped. Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
Okay, then.
Thank you so much.
Should I end meeting for everyone? This is your last class, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then. See you all. Bye.